Good
Hey,
afternoon, everybody. It's me, Linda Burhans, with Candid Conversations, talking to fabulous people that are doing fabulous things. It's an extension of my radio show because I come across so many wonderful people that have really good information that we want to get out there. Sometimes it's about caregiving, sometimes it's not. But today we have my friend Dr. DeLon Canterbury. I'm so glad that you're with us today. He's been on my show before. He's been part of my conferences, and the work he does is outstanding and I think really, really important. So, can you introduce yourself to our listeners and tell us what you do?
for sure. Appreciate you having me back on, Linda. My name is Dr. DeLon Canterbury. I am a pharmacist and founder of GeriatRx.org, and we focus on advocating for our over medicated seniors by working with your providers to get you off of medicines safely. And so, with this movement, the deprescribing movement, my goal is to make sure no one suffers like my grandmother did, who was given an inappropriate medication while she was in a nursing home. So I'm
Yeah.
honestly honored to be here. And frankly, I'm kind of like an anti pharmacist. I want people off of meds. And I'm tired of just hearing so many caregivers, families suffering from just wondering what they can really do if they feel like it's falling on deaf ears. So pharmacists are really caregivers' best friend. They're their best kept secret in healthcare. And I think we have a role to play, especially in advocating for seniors who, frankly, are the ones who suffer the most from
Yeah.
being over medicated and polypharmacy and all types of issues when providers aren't talking to each other about what their patients are taking. So that's where
Well,
pharmacists come in, and that's how I'm able to help
and,
people.
and especially our seniors, the greatest generation there ever was, they
Yeah.
have full faith in whatever the doctor says. They never question.
Right, right.
And they never, and many times they don't tell the doctor that they're seeing another doctor for something else. Have you found
No,
that too?
yeah, all the time. Unfortunately, it's with our boomers, they generally don't want to rock the boat. They're kind of just like, well, I trust what's happening here, and then you find often, even in the medical system, their med records are inaccurate. The medications listed aren't even active yet. Still, they end up being refilled or could pause, continue. There's always an issue with the meds. So there's such a huge gap, even when people trying to fix this, where caregivers may not know all the meds, or they usually know the meds, but communicating that to the patient and provider is another story. And that's where all these issues can come in. And I mean, I've seen simple over the counters like Benadryl send people to the hospital. So it's important to know what you're taking at all times.
A few months back, my doctor, and I love and trust my doctor, but she wanted me to go on a statin.
Right.
I didn't want to go on a statin because to me, this is how I feel lately. It's like you get a statin and you get a statin and you get a statin and you get a statin.
Right. Pretty much. Pretty
Um,
much.
so I I I filled the prescription, but
Okay.
I chose not to take it. I thought about it after that. I didn't take it, and I decided to eat more oatmeal, and I decided to take garlic, whatever. And I went back 3 months later, and she said, "Boy, that statin's really working." I said, "No, didn't take the statin." Like, well, whatever you're doing is really good. Keep doing that.
Right.
But every month, the pharmacist renews that prescription. I
Oh,
do not want it. I do not take it. I tell them that, and they still do it. Now, if I'm a senior, I'm probably just going to think that I'm supposed to take that.
yep. Yep. You're going to get
It's
that
not,
alert from CVS or Walgreens that says your
yeah,
prescription's ready. You're going to go right on down and pick it up because you're like, oh, that something's ready. So I got to get it. And you don't quite need it. So it's so true. It happens all the time. And I used to be I was the one doing that. I was the one trying to get my script numbers up and make those quotas that didn't matter to really the patient to make that money for my company. And I admit it, that was what we had to do as pharmacists in the retail setting. We're not all like that, but unfortunately, our hands are tied. So it's a true story.
yeah, it's sad. So tell me how you actually go about prescribing. Like, all right, so I'm taking care of scenario.
Yeah,
I'm taking care of my mom,
yeah,
and she's on like 9 medications, and I don't think anybody should be on 9 medications. So where do I start?
right. First of all, you got to have a healthy conversation with your pharmacist, even if it's not me with my company. If there's a pharmacist you can talk to objectively and say, hey, can you just sit down and is there a way I can meet with you and just go over everything? This is the number one thing I tell patients to do is go to a pharmacy that you trust or pharmacist and literally ask if you have time to sit down for 20 minutes and just go through everything you can. So the first thing I do.
But how often is they going to get a yes to that? The guy at Walgreens isn't going to sit down with them for 20 minutes.
It's hard to do, but it's definitely doable. And so I would generally, when I was a manager, I would be like, hey, I'm actually busy now. I would tell people to come back at a certain time where it's like easier for me to do that review. But it's definitely doable, even though it may be low on a priority list. You'll find that a lot with independent mom and pop pharmacies who really, really do care about their patients.
Yeah.
So that's pretty common there. Now, but again, it does start with a med review. You gotta go through all the medications, all the herbals, all the toothpaste, shampoos, lotions, everything that patient takes. Eye drops, especially, eye drops are important. You gotta go through and do a full.
Yeah, I would never even think of that.
Yep. Eye drops do matter. They can have interactions when combined with other stuff. So you got to do a full list of everything, okay? And then have them all lined up, whether it's a list or, all your pill bottles. This is what's called a brown bag review sometimes in the old days. For me, I take it a step further and I do what's called a Deprescribing review. So with my credential as a board certified geriatric pharmacist, I'm able to really pinpoint which meds are necessary for life and which ones are just kind of like, nice to have or no longer needed or just completely inappropriate and sometimes harmful. And what we find in our seniors is they've just been on stuff for decades and no one really questions why they're still there.
Right.
They just are on it. So everyone is, well, it's still helping, so I'll just take it. And so people end up taking this for years and years. And this is what's called clinical inertia. But again,
does it even work after you take it for those many years?
Excuse me?
Does it even work if you take it for those many years?
Depends on the medication.
Wouldn't you think some people could even build an immunity to it and just have side effects instead?
Depends on the medication. So, for instance, here's something I see often, right? There's a class of drugs called Benzodiazepines, right? Those are like Xanax, Klonopin, Valium. Those are used for anxiety for short-term issues of stress, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes in our seniors, it's used inappropriately to help them sleep. So this is something I see a lot, and it's hard to get off of it because you end up building basically a dependency on the medication. So it's really hard to taper off. It's doable, but it's difficult. But I see seniors who are on it for decades, and now they have to have it to sleep. The problem is benzodiazepines increase falls risks, they increase fractures, they can actually worsen dementia in dementia patients. It's not good for cognitive impairment. It's associated with motor vehicular accidents in seniors. So there's all types of indirect ways that this medication can do harm, but because they've been on it for so long, it's like, well, they've been on it, so why stop it? And that's the problem our healthcare system has, is we're not putting any effort to deprescribe and get people safely off of some of these meds, or even talk about it with the patient.
Yeah. But it's our responsibility to talk about it. We got to go to our doctor. We have to go to our pharmacist. We have to go to, maybe I have to talk to my daughter first, for instance. Maybe I have to say to my daughter, can you come over and just help me make a list of all this stuff? Because we all want to feel better. That's why we're taking these medicines or whatever. To feel better. But I don't think all these medicines are making us feel better.
Generally, they don't get me wrong. Medicines are a godsend, and there's some medicines that we definitely need for life. Okay, I'm not going to take away a cancer drug because someone, that's not necessary to even talk about that. But truthfully, statistically, we know for a fact 275,000 people are sent to the ER each year. And I don't mean ER, I mean they die. 275,000 people actually die from medication errors in the US, okay? And that amounts to close to $500 billion that we as taxpayers are spending and wasting because of our ineffective healthcare system. So that's a strong number, Linda.
Yeah.
How many lives can we save with just the right amount of education, the right amount of advocacy, having a pharmacist in your back pocket who you can text and ask any question in a moment, which is what I provide for my patients. They have me 24/7. So if you don't have that advocacy or someone in your family who could tell you otherwise, you're going to assume everything's cool. And this is where, again, harm can come into place, or not even have enough geriatricians to treat people who have the mindset of deprescribing. You're gonna see someone in a random clinic and you're gonna hope they have that, but they don't have that on their list of things to do. They got to worry about getting you in and out the door, getting that next copay. And so I'm like, how can we empower people like you with our deprescribing accelerator program and train clinicians how they can not only advocate best for patients, but also create a different stream of revenue by doing what is morally and ethically right? You
Yeah.
know, just changing the entire health system. Let's not do what the health system wants us to do. Let's actually do the opposite. Let's
Yeah.
talk about your diet. Let's talk about working out. Let's talk about strategies I use. Let's talk about integrative medicine. Let's talk about acupuncture, massage therapy, whatever we can put your hands on to provide treatments that are affordable and reasonable and sustainable without throwing you in another opioid. You know?
I'll tell you about this. This is probably going back 40 years ago. I had facial neuralgia. So half my face is numb or whatever. And so the doctor tells me they're going to give me some prescription and I have to take it for the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, I was young then. I'm not taking anything for the rest of my life. And I went to an acupuncturist. And after 4 visits, my facial neuralgia was gone.
Wow. Really? Like permanently gone? Never came back? Wow.
Yep.
I love that.
Yeah. So I could have been on that medication though.
Yep.
For the rest of my life.
Yep.
Or not.
Yeah. And it wasn't an easy medication. I think the first line therapy is like amitriptyline or something, and it has tons of side effects. You would have hated to have that at a younger age. And then going into your older age is actually on the Beers list. So that's one way I use to implement deprescribing methods, is to check if the drugs are on the Beers list. So BEERS list.
So what is that list?
So this is actually a list comprised from the American Geriatric Society. I think it was derived in the 90s initially, and they do a review every 4 years and they come out with new recommendations. There's actually one coming out this year in a couple months. But basically, this is a list of the most potentially inappropriate medications that are found in seniors that can cause harm. And they actually list out why they cause harm. So this is a really critical tool that I actually implement and use when I do my reviews. And it's how I'm able to teach people and actually educate other caregiver advocates on ways they can spot potentially harmful meds. And
how do you spell that list?
Just like beers, plural.
Okay.
BEERS. It's called the Beers list. And he was a geriatrician, and the American Geriatric Society gives an update to this very same list every 3 years. So this is actually some
prescription medications.
It's prescription and OTCs. Now it's mainly prescription, but it does go over some OTCs that are problematic. For instance, like ibuprofen can be very problematic, as well as Benadryl.
So tell me a little bit more about that, because I think that's another one. Everybody takes Benadryl all the time, especially if they can't sleep.
Right. So Benadryl, traditionally was used as an antihistamine or anti-allergy medicine. And a side effect of Benadryl is, of course, drowsiness and sedation. Now, mind you, some people actually get wired on Benadryl. I don't understand how that happens, but it does happen. But essentially, Benadryl has a way of working that is suspected to affect cognition in people who suffer from dementia or Parkinson's or Alzheimer's. Basically, anyone with a moderate to mild cognitive impairment. Benadryl is considered an antihistamine, but it's also considered to be anticholinergic. So choline is a pathway in our brains, a neurotransmitter, basically a signaler that tells our memories to form and create responses, right? And so Benadryl actually blocks how that pathway works in the body. And so it's actually highly contraindicated, meaning it's not appropriate, in fact, harmful in people who have dementia to take those type of medicines. So it's Benadryl, doxylamine. There are a couple others in that class of anticholinergic drugs. In fact, there are so many drugs that are anticholinergic, it really takes an expert to fine tune what they may be.
So what is somebody supposed to take when they go to sleep? The other thing I hear all the time they're taking is Tylenol PM.
That also is Benadryl. I'm so glad you mentioned that. I cannot tell you how many patients I've had who take Tylenol PM and they take Benadryl without realizing that that PM in Tylenol is the Benadryl. So diphenhydramine is Benadryl, and that's the sneaky and unfortunately insidious thing of our health system is we have all these OTC products with all these crazy names: Tylenol PM, Advil PM, Dayquil, blah blah blah. They literally all have Tylenol in it, and so that is a no-no if you're someone who has cognitive impairment or dementia. But generally, I advise and first want to assess, what kind of sleep hygiene are they getting? Are they going to bed earlier? Are they eating too late in the day? Are they avoiding TV and their cell phones at night? Are they using the bed strictly just for bed? Are they considering other options like maybe melatonin? Melatonin is a really, really safe option for people who are suffering.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, it's great. It's relatively safe. It's affordable, and it works. Even though after a while your body may build a little bit of a tolerance, but it is natural. So this is exactly the type of mindset we teach in our Deprescribing Accelerator. It's a 3-month program, and we're literally teaching clinicians who are passionate about deprescribing and senior care and want to learn a different way of how they can really advocate so that their patients get the best results, and hopefully they can get some more revenue because now they have a trusted resource in the community who sees other ways than just throwing
right.
people.
So tell me some success stories.
Whew. Oh, in fact,
I always love a good story.
I love success stories. In fact, it was actually our very last patient we just had. She actually attended one of my brain symposiums this summer at an aging agency event, and she reached out to me to do a med review because she was concerned about her loved one, and her loved one was on about 15 medications, but overall was pretty healthy. In one medication review, right, Linda, we were able to get her potentially off of 9 medications. Okay? 9. Just from a first glance of looking at this. So we conduct, again, med reviews, but then we take it a step further and do deprescribing reviews, okay? So we gave our recommendations, we worked with the patient, and then we told the doctor about what we think would be best. The best part about this story is the doctor agreed with everything. Now, the patient did want to stay on one of the medications, and I was like, okay, fine. So they ended up still having the medications they were on. So they went from 15 down to 7. So wow. I'm okay with that. I prefer 5, but it was a huge win. And the patient is already seeing and acknowledging, wow, why hasn't this been done before? Why hasn't anyone talked about it? And the doctors clearly see the very same thing I do. They just haven't brought to their attention because they're not trained on how to do this. They're not their job necessarily, even though it is their job. The health system doesn't make it their job. Does that make sense? So that's where I'm like, gosh, there's such a role pharmacists can play here. And that's why I'm so fired up about getting our seniors off of these meds and avoiding falls, stopping harm, reducing unnecessary side effects, getting people genetic tested so they're taking the right meds based on their genes. All of this is a part of our Deprescribing Accelerator course, and we're looking for nurses, we're looking for pharmacists, we're looking for clinicians, gerontologists, people who see the need to advocate and potentially generate some revenue for their business.
Yeah, that's huge. Have you approached any colleges or anything? I think the new young people need to know about this because it happened.
Oh, yes, and yes. There are a couple of schools of pharmacy. I actually am considering becoming an adjunct faculty at a nursing school to teach senior care and pharmacology when it comes to seniors and geriatric medicine. But just so you know, this is a little bit of a secret, but our course is actually in the works of becoming CE accredited. So we're hoping to get social workers, doctors, PAs, nurses, anyone in the health system who's interested in interdisciplinary approaches to care. We are looking to get all that CE accredited, so we're hoping this can really, really change the game for healthcare for the better.
Yeah, maybe not. I know not for November, but maybe for the next May conference, you'll be able to do that.
Oh, it's sooner than that.
Yeah? All right, we'll talk about it.
It's sooner than that. Like in the next month or two, we're gonna.
Oh, fabulous!
We're gonna be CE accredited.
So, are you going to offer that at the conference?
Sorry.
What?
What'd you say?
Are you going to offer that at the conference?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, perfect.
Absolutely. I'm offering that now. We're looking for 7 to 10 people to join. We're actually currently looking at applications. We just opened that application. So this month we'll be screening, but we're hoping to start late September. And then we're going to definitely enroll for the next cohort, which will be in February. So we're definitely going to keep doing this. This will be our 3rd cohort, Linda. I mean, I met you just like a year and a half ago, and we're already like 3 cohorts in. So I am so satisfied with the success and the reception of my graduates who are moving on to leveraging this and developing their own conferences for prescribing.
If people know better, they can do better.
Yeah, simple and plain. So
yeah,
I'm ecstatic, honestly, but I love seeing that we can change healthcare and not be tied to an insurance company or be tied to a health system. Like we all have a role, from the patient to the caregiver to the social worker to the nurse. Everyone has a very important role. And even, get this, PT and OT have a huge role when it comes to meds, right?
Oh, yeah.
You're trying to get people walking again. If you don't have the right meds, then their job is just moot. They end up doing like all this work for nothing because they're suffering from unnecessary meds. So it all comes
sometimes people on so many meds, they don't even do their OT PT. They don't even do it.
Wow. Yeah. See, you're right.
They get stuck in that chair in the living room and they're not doing anything.
Yeah. So, man, you nailed it. So that's what we're preaching today is what people will take away from our Prescribing Accelerator course. Again, we're looking for clinicians who are passionate like you and I are to put this into action, because we got to be disruptors. We got to raise a little hell for things to change.
We do.
That's what I'm here to do.
And it's up to us.
It really is.
And as you are, you're training the people behind us so that they know what to do. So that it makes a better world all around.
Oh yeah. You know it. I mean, you do that anyway, but I'm just adding to that, and I again, this company, GeriatRx, it only started because my grandmother in a nursing home was given an anticholinergic medication, an antipsychotic, which wasn't appropriate, and it worsened her dementia through the roof to where we had to take her in, we had to take care of her and find housing while she was in New York down to Atlanta. And if it wasn't for that one person who advocated, that one pharmacist who was like, you know what, this medication is actually doing more harm than good. She shouldn't have been on this. I don't know if my grandma would have lived to see 90. So that never left me. And it's the reason why I care so much about making this change in our system.
Yeah. And I've done the genetic testing and I feel so comfortable about that, just knowing that my doctor now has these records. Mm-hmm. And if I do need to be treated in the future with some medication, we will know what's the best thing for me.
Yes, absolutely. Genetic testing is not going away. It's really, and we had dedicated an entire module to this and how you can change lives, save lives, just by knowing your genes. We can't assume everyone's body works the same. Come on, we're all different. And truthfully, they don't. Medications don't work the same. We have different ethnicities and backgrounds. And one of the main things I think I covered in one of our last discussions about this was how people with Asian ancestry have a gene that makes them less likely to break down Plavix, which is a really common blood thinner, right? And we're seeing almost upwards of about 30% of people with Asian ancestry won't be able to get the effect of an important life-saving blood thinner. So if you're giving people all these meds and they're 30% ineffective, we're putting people in harm's way. People might die. In fact, people did die, and there was a huge lawsuit against Bristol Myers Squibb, I think for $800 million, because they deceived people and didn't tell providers to get their patients genetically tested before they took the medicine. Okay, so it's a big deal. It's a very
Yeah.
big deal. And so now the FDA is catching on to where they're requiring people to report any genetic type of implication for new drugs that come to market. So get your genetic test. Yeah.
Where does like CBD and that stuff come into the picture?
Well, that's still an emerging market. There's a lot of hoopla about it, as you can clearly see. I see strong uses for medicinal marijuana. I think there needs to be transparent communication about the drug interactions associated with those products.
But they think there is none.
There is.
People that are smoking weed think that they've been doing it their whole life, and it doesn't interact with anything.
Well, that's not true. Marijuana, CBD,
right.
They do have genetic pathways that they all go through, and depending on your genes, it can actually affect how some of those drugs may work. So just like any other drug, I will still encourage you to communicate that with the provider to ensure you're not having any interactions, because CBD and marijuana interact with quite a lot of medications. As an avid proponent of it, it does have its harms too. So I'm not against it. I am against people just putting it out there to capitalize without giving them the fair picture of what harm can take place.
Yeah, without educating them enough.
Exactly.
Like with everything, we need an education with everything.
Yeah, for sure.
It's so important. Well, so where can our listeners find you, DeLon?
Yeah, I'm all over social media. I think the easiest place is LinkedIn. Just search GeriatRx, GeriatRx as an X-ray, or check out our website, geriatrix.org. Or, of course, you can just Google my name, Dr. DeLon Canterbury. I do an ongoing live series on YouTube and Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram talking about this problem. But you can find me on my website too, geriatrix.org, GeriatRx.org. Or, of course, just shoot me a call. My cell phone is on my website. You can always call or text me anytime you feel.
I'll put all that information in the show description so everybody has it. And I just became an influencer on YouTube.
Really?
Yeah.
Congrats. That's amazing. That's brilliant.
Oh my goodness.
That's so cool. And you definitely deserve that, for sure. For sure.
Get that information out there, and that's what really counts.
Hey, I'm happy to help and be here with you. So thank you for being just a huge friend and advocate for the mission and helping us get off these meds.
Thank you, my friend. And next year, I'm taking a road trip to see you.
Hey, please do. I'm always here. No worries.
Right. Have a delicious day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Later.